So most people reading about the wedding of Cana of Galilee would think about the miracle water into wine, and they'd go past verse 6, this idea of these stone water jars, and probably not give it a second thought. Other people would write a whole book about that verse, and it just so happens that I know one of those people. That's Roland, and so he was pretty excited when we were in Israel and we saw some of these stone jars. But it is good actually to hear that kind of thing, because I was one of those people who would just overlook these detail, and it's amazing how such a small detail can reveal such a wealth of information that really contributes to understanding the meaning of the text.
Oh, these stone vessels I really love, because when I was here for the first time in this museum, I saw them, I get an explanation for them, and I got the idea for my first book. So I've written about these stone vessels, a book with about 300 pages, because they are mentioned in the Gospel of John in a half verse in the 2nd chapter, connected with the story of the wedding at Cana.
So in John's Gospel, the first miracle that Jesus is said to have done there it's fairly well known. It's the one where Jesus changes water into wine. And that's said to happen at a wedding at Cana. And we actually saw one of the possible sites for Cana when we were in Israel, Cana of Galilee. And so Jesus is invited to this wedding along with his mother and his disciples. And it turns out at this wedding that they run out of wine. And Jesus' mother pushes Jesus forward almost, to do something about this. And she says to the attendants at the wedding, do whatever he says. And Jesus, it seems, is a bit put out by this. He says, Mother, my time has not yet come. So maybe it's not yet, in the context of John's Gospel, the time when Jesus' ministry would become public. So what we read about in John 2 is the fact that there are 6 stone water jars at this wedding. Now, these are actually big things. John adds the detail here that each hold 20 or 30 gallons. That's the English translation anyway. The idea, at least, is that they hold a lot of water, 20 or 30 gallons.
In a way, till they excavated here, this area, 1967, always wondered, how is it possible that you have such large stone chairs, you can't move them, you haven't found them in excavation. So that was always seen as a kind of exaggeration from the side of John. And now when they found here these stone jars, and it's interesting because you can prove by archaeological excavation that they were used mainly from the time of Herod, that means from the birth of Jesus till the destruction of Jerusalem in the year 70. That means only in a very short time span, and exactly in the time span which covers the life and teaching of Jesus. So this small find suddenly helped us to understand how John got some of the details in his books, which were seen as a little bit exaggerated. He got them right, and they are in a way based on solid historical knowledge of what actually happened in Jerusalem in this time.
John also adds the detail that they're for the Jewish rites of purification. So this is John 2:6. Standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. So John is emphasizing, he's adding this aside, the idea that these jars are important for Jewish washing rituals. And Jesus says, fill up these jars. He says to the attendants, fill up these jars. They do. He says, scoop some water from these jars in a cup and take it to the master of the party, the person who's organizing the wedding. So that happens. The attendants take the water from these stone jars to the master of the wedding. He drinks it and he's amazed because it's the finest wine that they've tasted throughout the whole wedding party. And he says he compliments the groom. He says most grooms give out the best wine first, and when everyone's drunk they give out the cheaper stuff, but you've done it the other way around. You've saved the best wine till last. So the miracle is Jesus has turned all this water in these purification jars into wine, and a fine wine.
So that means the jars that Jesus used, or the jars which were standing there when Jesus turned water into wine, were actually looking exactly like this one, because we found them not just here in Jerusalem, but also in Galilee, and this miracle at the wedding at Cana took place in Galilee, and there we have found similar jars as well.
So perhaps one of the reasons that John draws out the significance of these jars and says that they're for the Jewish rite of purification is as if to say, out of the Jewish system, if you like. Jesus is bringing something new, which is even better. So it's coming from within Judaism, and Jesus is now bringing out an abundant, there are these 6 massive jars, supply of something new and great.
And stone had the advantage, according to this Jewish legal system, that stone can't contract impurity. That means stone vessels will remain pure whatever you do. And so this was very helpful for people who want to run a kosher household.
Yeah, I think that when you read the text and it says that these 6 stone jars and then this English phrase held, what is it, 20 to 30 gallons, I think you can perhaps overlook that and just think, I don't know, not really have a sense of how much that is. But when you see these stone jars, first of all, with Roland's explanation, you get much more of a sense of their use in Jewish rites and how there's a significance that they actually used in Jewish rituals, and that Jesus is changing their water into wine. But secondly, you get a real sense of the kind of the abundance of this miracle. And actually, yeah, that does bring out an element of the text. The idea that what Jesus is bringing is abundant, and you don't really realise that until you've seen these jars, until you realise that 6 of these things, that's a lot of wine or a lot of water turned into wine.